And it is extraordinary just to see the pace of deepfakes, the sophistication in a very short space of time. And I think it's a reminder to all of us how we have to constantly think about moving fast, building the guardrails, being proactive and yet having the ability to be reactive. So there's constantly those two things of having to be agile and yet keeping a radical focus. And the importance of just looking around corners, thinking about the consequences of technology like this can do good, of course, but in the hands of bad actors and those who want to spew confusion and disrupt. It can have real-world consequences. So that was a tour de force there, Brian, for a very complex and fast-moving space. Now, we're going to go to one of our platinum sponsors today in Trellix, and I know from talking to Matt and team, these are one of the key strategic turnkey partners for Integrity 360 in terms of offering a complete end-to-end solution to partners. And I think I'm right in saying this, the longest-standing partner now of Integrity 360 is Trellix, which says a lot about their people and leadership, a constant theme here this morning. So give it up for the EMEA CTO, Mo Cashman. Mo is here. You can make your way up to see. Some actionable recommendations and rationale.
Great. Is there it is. Brian, thank you for that, because that was, when you think about resilience, knowing the intelligence and knowing what's out there, that's really one of the key things to, that keeps organizations secure. And honestly, I just found a way that I'm going to pass my Dutch C2 exam, because when I speak Netherlands, I have a terrible accent, and I think the deepfakes will help me pass that exam much easier. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Richard and my 360 team for opportunity to speak to you about. I hope we're going to give some practical tips for resilience in 2025. Some of which you probably know, and maybe one or two things hopefully are new to you and you can take back to your organizations and start to implement things. And the first thing I want to speak about, people think, oh, ransomware, that's old. Well, it's never old. It constantly evolves. And Trellix has a long history in ransomware research, takedowns, actor research. And we really have a passion for helping organizations to defeat this particular threat, and it does continually evolve. Looking at AI, there's a lot of talk about that. I want to take maybe a slightly different turn on that for this piece and call making your workplace secure for AI. Some things to think about in that particular area. And then finally, I call this the red thread in compliance, but to me, security operations is super important for resilience in all aspects, not just in compliance. It's an area where I grew up in. My first jobs in cyber was in security operations, and there's some great stories there. It's actually a great job to be in. So if you're an analyst there or a CERT team, hats off to you because you're doing a great job. So let's take a look at ransomware and how it's a little bit different. Like I said, we have a lot of intel on this particular topic, but I think one area where it's probably very, very topical, very, very relevant is how activists might be using this particular technique. And why is that important? You think about activists, it's never been really that important in the scheme of things, at least generally. Nation states, APT, that kind of thing, cybercrime groups. But think about where we are in the world today. Activism is going to be one of the biggest things. And why is that different? Because ransomware gives these guys, the network of ransomware actors and platforms that are available, whether they're hosted by nation states, cybercrime, the different tools, it gives these guys an easy way to have an impact, right? And what's their impact most likely going to be? A bit of destruction, right? A bit of high-profile type things. So take a look at that aspect of things. That's going to be, I think, quite important. The other piece here, I was going to mention this one because it's also another passion of myself, is in the operational technology. And what's really great about this conference is that you have some technologists, some specialists here that are securing these industrial systems. A lot of times when we talk about operational technology, the first thing that comes to mind is the big systems. Emerson, Siemens, Honeywell, Philips, they make big platforms for oil rigs, for energy distribution, for all kinds of outcomes there. And that's really the traditional piece. But there's a lot of parts to that. Right? It could be embedded solutions in healthcare, medical systems. The financial sector is also operational technology. And I was with a large customer yesterday in the retail space, and that's their biggest problem is those embedded systems. I think I want to speak more about the heavy industry type issue here, because that's where, when you combine the hacktivist part and the outcome, there's these guys that can really calculate the downtime that an attack really has. You think about security business cases, it's really hard sometimes to make those, right? But when you talk about industrial technology and the disruption that can happen there, whether that's intellectual property, well, really the damage, and then extend that to intellectual property theft, that the business can really measure that, so they can get that business case for investment there. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, this I think is probably one of the areas where most of you know, but thinking about resilience to ransomware itself, you've got to have an email defense in depth. And these are things, the statistics up here, I'm not going to call them out, but they're from our own telemetry. There are things that get through other tooling, maybe in the productivity space, for example. And I think it's good now that you have a layered defense in email. If you're not doing that now, that's you have to start there, essentially. That's one aspect, having the tooling in place. But I want you to think about a little bit differently about that. Think about tooling as a sensor in your security operations team. Using that data, using the tooling for automated responses becomes really important. You think about EDR and NDR; those are traditional censoring tools. Email is sort of there to formulate compliance, do hygiene, protect against general threats. You've got to think differently about that today, both from the preventative side, but also from the detective and response side. How you integrate that into your SOC playbooks becomes extremely important. It's always been important, but I think it's even more important when you think about a resilience to ransomware. Hopefully, I'll just yes, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Another key area, and this is again from telemetry that we have. And you think about this too, and you think about ransomware resilience, you want to identify your gaps. Right? Where are your key gaps? A lot of you have the right controls in place. Where are those malware gaps? Where are those entry point gaps? Aside from those deepfakes, and that's one entry point for sure. Right? But think about other entry points. You have applications that are servicing customers. You have collaboration channels. You have a lot of storage environments. And part of our telemetry in protecting collaboration and storage environments, it really speaks some interesting statistics there. When I looked at that telemetry, what I saw was in cloud storage environments, so S3, Azure storage environments, other types of storage environments, mainly the big platforms, almost between 45 and 50% of the files that were there were detected as malicious. That is from the global distribution of censoring. In those things, we run a sandbox service for different types of applications, and storage by far was the biggest malicious detection environment. So if you're not doing more inspection on those environments, think about all those maybe dormant storage environments. This is actually a use case from a customer where they thought about, we have all this data, all this data stored, we don't know how long it's been there. We need to ensure that if we're going to back it up, we're going to use it, we need to ensure that it's malware free, right? And they found a lot of different detections in those dormant storage environments. And that's just one example, but there's a lot more dynamic systems that you're using. All your customer applications, whether you're in financial sector or another industry that's gathering data and applications from customers, it's going into a SharePoint, it's going into a storage. And everyone is using these different types of storage environments, ensuring that they're malware free, not just with signatures, but more detonation capability is something that we recommend. And we're finding those detections, a lot of malicious detections in those storage environments. Going down into the collaboration channels. Again, going back to Brian's presentation, the collaboration channels, that's an entry point for deepfakes. You can be socially engineered there. It can also be a malware exchange as a result of that. And how many of you are doing more inspection on those type of channels? And by our telemetry, what we're seeing is that channels that you use into your business, like Slack, for example, or in the case of Salesforce that you're uploading a lot of documents to, collaboration across businesses, that is an entry point where we see another area of a lot of malicious detections, right? And that stands out from some of our other telemetry in other more common collaboration channels. So I picked the ones that sort of go across businesses, but also the ones where we see the most risk. And so if you're using those type of applications, go back and look at what type of malware inspection you have on those particular channels if you want to be more resilient to ransomware. Now let's look at the operational technology piece. And hopefully this is not a new concept, but an interesting concept for you. And everyone remembers shared responsibility in cloud, right? Anybody not remember that? Right? That's important. How about shared responsibility model for industrial security protection? Right? It's an interesting concept. Why? Because when I'm engaging with customers in oil and gas, energy in particular, they have challenges in this area. Right? They don't know the suppliers, the Emersons, the Siemens. They're providing the technology, but sometimes they're also providing the security services. Right? They have to provide incident response services. Right? They have to be able to provide vulnerability fixes. And sometimes those patches and those updates are coming not on the daily basis that we're used to, or the frequent basis that we're used to in security, but more at the glacial speed of months, right, or several months, or never, right, when it comes to new technology or updates to that. So there's a responsibility that the vendors have when they're providing security. There's a responsibility for the IT to know that there's a different culture in OT security than there is in IT. I can't just deploy that patch. Maybe I have to think more about the safety aspects of deploying security technology there than I do on the IT side. So the IT has to know the culture. They have to know what their responsibility is. Can they just knock that system off the network, like you might do for anybody's laptop? Can't do that. You might not even be able to reach that machine, right, automatically. So the responsibility model becomes really, really important. And a lot of times it's really important in the incident response. If you have to respond to a threat, knowing what is a critical system, what can I do to that, what kind of improved software and controls can I deploy there, becomes really critical. And I'm finding across industry that it's not consistent. It's not consistently known, it's not consistently known who's responsible for what. And this is a model that affects really in the big industries, because they do have OT security teams. A challenge there is that a lot of those teams are in the sites, but they might have a security representative. They might have some security knowledge there, right? But those guys don't know the IT side of things. So again, from a cultural point of view, the OT guys need to understand more about cyber than the IT side, vice versa. And from a leadership point of view, we see from statistics, from trends, let's say, that when an organization has an IT OT security concept, right, at the CISO level, they're much more effective and they're much more resilient overall. That's what we see as a really positive trend in that particular area. So think about that. Think about going back to an organization. If you're in manufacturing, energy distribution, oil and gas, those type of industries where OT security is super, super important. Think about how you're going to develop that shared responsibility model. And maybe as an industry, we can come together and put one of those out. The representative green, yellow box, that's just my example. I think we have to come together as an industry to really agree upon that if we want to get serious about OT security. Okay. Now from the AI perspective, again, new risks, again, similar to cloud, different, of course. I think in scale and impact, this particular technology is much more disruptive than cloud is going to be. But we have to make our workplace secure for this. And so there's benefits, there's risk and opportunity here. There's opportunity in security operations and security defenders to take advantage of the technology, but there's also more traditional things that we need to think about as defenders. For example, what are the key risks that we have? Brian called out a really good example of the deepfake side, but there's even more less sophisticated things. Privilege abuse. The big concern, hands down, the biggest concern when we talk to CISOs about this particular issue is privilege abuse, and then the resulting data loss that comes from that. Right? And I think you can even take it one step down. With end user device, end users using the multitude of services. I think you said, Richard, there was 30 some, we'll say deepfake, not deepfake, but different types of services that you use for creating those videos and things. There's lots of different services out there. Similar in all kinds of, so that's just one aspect of it. There are hundreds of different services that can be used. How do you know how risky they are? Similar to what if you think about cloud, how do you know how risky those were? So think about assessing that particular risk. First piece here is, I'd say, what does an AI-enabled application look like? Actually, it's the first thing. When we talk to our engineers internally, right, how do you, we talk about AI, what does the components look like? What are the different services? You hear these terminologies, Bedrock, SageMaker, so forth. And what do they do? How do they work? Where are the right controls? If I want to prevent that data loss, I've got to be thinking about how I put my controls in place. And a lot of traditional controls can have a big impact here, especially data loss prevention. You're preventing the data, the wrong types of queries or the wrong types of data from being returned from those particular queries, protecting the applications, the servers themselves from exploitation over the internet, and then monitoring, right? Looking at monitoring the different commands, different outputs that the different services in the cloud, especially in this case with AWS, are producing. And I think this is a reference architecture that we're using now. You could apply it to other services. You know, just change the names a little bit. It's the same type of mitigations that you're going for. So thinking prevention, detection, and response is a key thing in many areas of security, but especially as you get into application security, what are the areas you need to monitor? Where do you need to put controls on end user devices or into the cloud service? And just doing that training, exposing your engineers, your security teams, what does an application architecture look like? What are the data flows? Where is that possible to put a control in place? I go across our organization, we're doing training there. It's not really well understood. Right? And I think that needs to be more training. When you think about training needs in relation to AI security, securing or educating our own engineers on what the applications look like, what the services do, what the data flows are, becomes equally important. And again, there's another shared responsibility that we have to be aware of. Okay. The other part I was talking a little bit about this, or I got ahead of myself, because I really think that this part is important. Sometimes in security, doing the basics, risk assessment is where you really need to start. And think about your experience in cloud with shadow IT type services, assessing those risks. You can apply some of the same type of we'll say mentality and controls to the AI problem. In this case, we're using our partner SkyHigh Technology, which we integrate with across to provide like a device-to-cloud data protection solution. In this case, we're applying the same risk assessment on top of AI service usage. And that's a critical thing, maybe a good first step in making your workplace secure for AI. And then finally, looking at security operations. And I don't know if others have seen presentations from myself or others at Trellix in all security operations over the last, let's say, two, 3 years. This is a model that I developed through experience. And I'm really happy to say that over, I'd say the last 5 to 8 years, I've been using this model for about almost 10 years, right? And the last 5 to 8 years was spent a lot in this operational level, trying to help our customers or organizations mature their security operations to that particular level, understanding the threat, being very operational. It's still a very proactive stage. Even having a strong incident response program is a super proactive phase of security. Even though the name says response, it's still very proactive. However, it's a little static. But organizations, I think now, have gotten there. Think all the technology we have, EDR, NDR, all the DRs out there. We have a lot of that technology. That's very prevalent. Intelligence, better understood than it was, a few years ago. For sure, the use of intelligence. I think we've gotten beyond the IOC feed as the best method of intelligence collection. And they've definitely gotten more understanding of what the threats are. And that has to keep going. I think now we're in this particular age and going forward for the next 5 years, think about this at the next level. How do you get to the 3.0? I call it the trusted level because I think that's the outcome that we're looking for. A trusted operating environment, a more resilient operating environment. And I think the leading organizations that have a strong SecOps capability are definitely thinking risk. Right? So the transition from threat to risk driven is important. And just as the example of the IT/OT conversation, if you left that before and left that separate, you weren't thinking very risk-oriented. Maybe there was a lot of focus on workplace-oriented threats before. Now that has to be across the business. So risk becomes very important. Adapting the posture becomes more important than it was before. Before it was more about responding, blocking, containing. Now it's definitely about adapting the posture. And adaptiveness and resilience are very much related capabilities. So this falls into your organizational resilience strategy. Key capabilities that I see are being needed. 360 visibility. Again, the OT/IT cloud conversation, having visibility over that. I was with a customer just yesterday, and that's one of the most important things for them. It's a large retail customer. getting visibility in the retail space, in the cloud space, in the workplace. They wanted more data, not less. And I think that's important. I ran an operations center that covered about 200,000 systems, and we looked for NetFlow data, we looked for web data, proxy, email data. We looked for more data, as much data as we could get to. Now, at that time, we didn't have the right technology to get through that data, but having it available was important. Now we have technology that can help you get through that data. Right? So don't go for more data, don't go for less data, go for more, especially as it looks at all the areas of risk in your business. Another area of importance here, not sure this is a term being talked about right now, but I think there's a distributed SecOps trend that will come about, or architecture that will come about, partially driven by AI, right, as a disruptor in how you do security operations architecture, but also to solve other issues. As you embed detection response capability into network security solutions, cloud security solutions, those teams become empowered to do more SecOps functions. That's a way to also address the speed and address the talent issue by empowering your workplace team, cloud team, and network team to be more security operations oriented. And you can do that by embedding that into a solution concept. And then finally, of course, with AI, where do we see currently impact of AI in security operations positively, let's say? One is certainly in triage automation. Incident response, alert management, and triage automation is what I call it. I think that's where AI is right now in terms of the technology, whether that's in endpoint detection tools or in XDR tools or similar capabilities. That's, I think, is where it is in the incident investigation. Basically, the level 1 moving into level 2 in the near future. Right? So I think that traditional 1, 2, 3 level model in SOC could get disrupted here when it comes to AI. As AI starts to become more of the level 1 analyst doing a lot of alert management, what does that mean for the human side of things? It means they have more time for the harder things. AI, I think, is very good at the normalization, the alert management phase, less good at those complex analogies or anomaly detection, where you think about threat hunting, right, and scoping activities that you have to do. We're not quite there yet, I don't think, in terms of the AI capabilities that we have out there, but we will get there soon, very soon. So that part right there. Other areas, a little bit mundane perhaps, incident reporting. I can tell you as an incident responder and other parts of the business, I hate writing reports. I hate summarizing reports. It was not executive focused enough, or it was not technical enough. But we see a possibility, actually not just a possibility, but actual technology today where incident reporting is being handled by AI. So a lot of those, again, there's level 1, maybe a little bit of level 2 functions taking place. On the last side there, detection engineering. One of the most difficult things in the SOC today is to ensure you have the right parsers, you can write rules across all the different sensors that you might have. We developed a tool for our services team called Sidekick, and it helps just with those functions. All those, I won't call them mundane because they're super important, but all the detection engineering functions that a team needs to do, you can now use AI to do that. And finally, in the area of threat intelligence, and you can make a correlate to the incident responders level 1, level 2, and the threat intel side. What we're doing with AI on the intel side is that level 1 threat intel analyst. Industry-based reporting, RFI answers, all those things. We find more accuracy in the AI tool that we've developed for intel, right, threat intel, than we have in some of the analysts. So again, freeing up those analysts to do the more complex tasks that they need to do, where human cognition becomes is far superior. And then finally, I know coming up to the 30-second mark, right? Just the last conclusions, right? We're seeing results from our own customer deployments and our own lab testing where the alert management is through AI is very, very effective. So we're getting through all those alerts. We are reducing that mean time to at least detect, mean time to declare an incident is becoming more effective. And we do see people moving towards not looking at threat hunting as a nice to have, but as a permanent function in their SOC because their analysts will have more time to do that. So with that, I'd like to thank i360 for the opportunity and for your attention. Thank you.
CTO of Trellix, thank you for that deep dive. Right, you're on the move next. Decision to make on 3 sessions that we're going to kickstart This is the final piece before you go to lunch in about 25 minutes. So we may pull up your options up on slides, but essentially here on this main stage, if you want to stay for Netscope, Gen AI is watching who's watching Gen AI, securing data in the age of Gen AI with Netscope, and that's going to look at the rise of Gen AI and all of the new challenges that introduces. If you want to stay for that, stay here in this room, we'll move you closer to the front. If, however, next door with Annex, and that's Sentinel-1, transforming security from a data problem to an intelligence solution, they're going to look at the question of how can organizations turn overwhelming data into actionable intelligence while ensuring seamless integration across their ecosystem. So that's going to be with Sentinel-1. If transforming security from a data problem to an intelligence solution is of interest, you're just going next door, right out the door, into the right. The team will help direct. Your third option, back up to where you did registration this morning, what's called the salad, is with Armis, and that's prioritize and protect, securing your entire attack surface, smart insights, securely optimize, and they're going to be looking at today's cyber threats and how that demands a proactive defense. They're going to be looking at early warning, detects emerging threats in real time, prioritizing alerts, so you can tackle the most critical risks, and there's going to be lots of lovely data points and all of that. If that third session with Armis is of interest, you just go back up the stairs, turning right where you did registration this morning. So for Netscope, here on the main stage, Sentinel-1 next door, Armis back upstairs. Those sessions will run for 25 minutes. During that time, there's no networking, we're not doing lunch yet. Just go, take the time, do a deep dive with one of them. When your session is done, you can make your way into the ballroom. The vendors will be there again, lunch will be served, and we see you back here around 2:30. Great, go, get your steps up on the move, everyone. Thank you. If you get lost,